I am Erin Patton, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the MetaBusiness Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, I am Erin Patton, also known as Master L, and welcome to today's live streaming of the MetaBusiness Millennial podcast. We are live across platforms. We're live on Instagram, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I am just, as always, so happy to be with you today. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to follow me across social media, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and of course, share this message with a friend because the collective needs this, as I say every week. And I also would love to hear from you. So if you're feeling called to leave a comment today, definitely drop me a comment, shoot me a DM, let me know how these messages resonate with you, because I really love to get feedback from you all on how things sit with you, how it's touching you, what experiences even in your life resonate with this, because the more we're able to share in how we're growing from these things, the more it impacts others. I talk about the ripple effect, and it's really in the conversations and the sharing that creates that ripple. And I'm really grateful to see all of you coming in the room. And I'm guessing that you can all hear me good. So, I'll always just let me know if there's, technical issues, and I can try to troubleshoot that. But let's get started on the topic today, because I really was drawn to talk about resilient leadership. And resilience is definitely a theme, if you will, or a trending topic in business and leadership specifically, because we're always going through so many challenges. I mean, since the pandemic, let's just be real, like life has not been the same. And, and we're really all trying to navigate sort of just like, what are these, these huge storms that are happening? Like, for example, what happened in Florida recently, or, financial crises, or things, or political crises, geopolitical crises. There always seems to be something to fear. Now the election coming around the corner, and how do we manage, everything from complete shutdown to somewhere in between? And so practicing resilience, and specifically resilient leadership, it requires you being unshakable. So I titled this Becoming Unshakable, because we want to learn how to be I guess, centered, strong are the proper words to use in that unshakable pursuit. And I want to talk through the tools that you can use. I want to talk through my own personal experiences of having to practice my unshakability, or which is a nice word of saying unfuckwittable. I was thinking when I said unshakable, it sounds like unfuckwittable. It's really, you want to be unfuckwittable. You really want to be in a space where anything can happen in the broader landscape, the broader environment, and or in your small world, and you can't be fucked with. And that's not an easy thing to practice. And let me just, be real about it, because oftentimes when things happen to us, and I'll speak from personal experience, like particularly in business, when you're making agreements with people and things don't pan out the way they should, and or you feel betrayed, and or you feel like you didn't get the results that you hoped for, yet you spent a lot of money or invested a lot of money, then it can create a feeling that is so painful that you want to, you're angry, you're resentful, you're unhappy, and you don't know what to do with those emotions. And this is essentially the critical piece around resilient leadership, is the management of emotions, to kick it off. And I want us to be clear about what I say in managing emotions, because I'm not telling us to put it in a box. I'm not suggesting that you ignore them. How we're walking through this and working through this is acknowledging where we stand, and always giving ourselves grace in those moments. If we're feeling like rage, anger, acknowledge that rage, anger, and find a way to nurture it. And I feel like I'm oftentimes giving the same tips every week, but they just show up in different contexts. But the noticing of the emotion, the naming of the emotion, and the nurturing of the emotion will get you so far in this life. Because fundamentally, what keeps us from moving forward are those stagnant emotions, or those emotions that haven't been dealt with, that we project around ourselves all day, every day, because we haven't healed the root wound, the root cause. And that's fundamentally why the spiritual journey, the spiritual practices, the metaphysical pursuit is very critical as we start to rise and grow in our leadership and our leadership capacities, because we must understand how to go about staying centered, managing those emotions, and nurturing them, and knowing how to take care of ourselves in the process. So the key to this resilient leadership, the first key is, as I mentioned before, is the management of emotions. And let me try to pull up a in my mind a personal example, because I feel like my personal examples kind of go a long way in kind of connecting with people, and also is a way of me even expressing myself and speaking my truth and really healing my own shit. And you know, one thing that happened to me recently in business was what I felt like was a betrayal. And it hurt painfully, like to the point of tears, and meetings and consults with my mentors, and understanding how to navigate the litigation, talking with my lawyers, and exploring all these different options. And this piece is it takes work. Okay. And the reason why it takes work is because, like all the things I just mentioned, talking, scheduling calls with lawyers, scheduling calls with mentors, talking through these things, understanding what really happened, doing the due diligence, doing the reflection. And so that takes you away from what you feel like could be pushing you forward. Yet what we must come to understand and accept, that these are the very things that accelerate our path. If we choose to ignore the hard things, then we can never get to the great things, because the hard things are going to keep us blocked and keep us stagnant. So we must accept that, damn, this is so challenging. This is so painful. I can't believe this person did this to me. Yet at the same time, this is a great lesson that I need to learn on my path to get to my next level. Because you must trust that right before the level up, you're going to get that test. This is not called, this is called a school of life for a reason. And just like in school, you get your pop quizzes, you get your scheduled quizzes, and you get your exams. And sometimes it can feel like all three at once, and that's okay. But you must understand that you are a stellar student in this life. Like, you have been chosen to walk this path. If you're listening to this podcast, if you're tuning into this, then you are chosen. I'm just going to go ahead and prophesy that over you. You are definitely a light being, and you want to be able to move in that light at all times. Yet you have to deal with your darkness. You have to face your shadows. And in order to move through that light, you have to take time for self-reflection. So in that time period when I'm just thinking about all these things, I'm losing sleep, I'm crankier than usual, I'm also giving myself space and grace for these emotions. It sometimes takes months, I have to admit, meaning every single day for months, you're feeling this way. And that's okay. And I want to be able to encourage you through these tough times to not lose your sight of your vision, to not lose your dedication and devotion to your vision, thinking that whatever this challenging time is going to just be there forever. And that leads me to the next piece around really trusting in that which is promised to you, and that is your dream, your vision. So as you're managing your emotions, you're holding fast to that vision and your values as well, because that all kind of goes together, your vision and your values, and really staying true to who you are. Knowing that I'm not going to seek revenge, knowing I'm not going to step out of bounds, out of my truth to remedy this situation. I will wait and be patient for a resolution. And that's really trusting in the vision, because as you're sitting in the shit, oftentimes it gets cleared away without you having to do so much work. However, you must be able to maintain your energy in the process. So as you're holding tight to that vision, let's focus on how to maintain and sustain, if you will, your energy. And I say this, and not a shameless plug, but working with folks like me, working with energy workers, working with mentors, spiritual mentors, is a very accelerated path in getting to and clearing that shit away so that you can move forward towards your vision. And let me just explain why, because I feel like this is the piece too that gets lost. When we talked about last week, people having difficulty accepting help, asking for help, even talking about their problems is a real thing. So let's acknowledge that. And if you fall into that category, that's cool. Yet for me, I think I just happened to grow up with the practice, if you will, or the behavior, if you will, of always having a tutor or a mentor or a coach, always in tandem with that which I was doing in my life. For example, when I was like a little girl, playing violin, I had my private violin sessions when I was in school, taking geometry. I had a math tutor. Or if I was on swim team, I also had like a coach to help me with my technique on, or running, same thing. So it was always part of my programming or upbringing to have that additional support. And what's important about that additional support is you have that sort of neutral third party guide who has been there, a little bit ahead of you and can really see for you what you can't see. And of course, it's up to you to make the final decision, because everything in this life you're accountable for. No matter what anyone tells you to do, it's up to you to choose to do that. Yet it's really, really helpful and supportive to have someone like me or a coach to work with you and guide you through these challenges, someone who's been there before and can help you sort of navigate the nuances of the emotions, even name these emotions for you that you don't even know what they are or where they're coming from. And the piece about the coaching towards that vision that's been, most powerful for me is in those moments when I feel alone. I have to admit, like, I have so many beautiful friends. I have so many beautiful family members. I have such beautiful communities in so many different ways. Yet there are so many moments, particularly when I'm going through a hard time, where I feel like I'm by myself. I feel alone. I feel like no one gets me. No one understands me. And it's just a sad place to be in, yet it's quite normal, particularly for leaders. It's like the saying is real, it sometimes gets lonely at the top. It sometimes gets fucking lonely at the bottom. It gets lonely out here. And so for you to be able to have someone that you can trust, that you can rely on and be accountable to is super critical. It's not like having a parent. It's not like a parenting situation. It's an accountability partner. It's a mentor. It's a guide for your life. And so I highly recommend that you invest in that for yourself, particularly if you're looking towards an accelerated path. If you're wanting to kind of manage all this on your own, which I already know can be super overwhelming, then, you can go at it. Yet if you're really wanting to accelerate your journey and make sure you feel supported and, take as much of the weight off of you as you can, I highly recommend that. And so we're talking about the management of emotions. We're talking about the accelerating your journey to your vision with the support of guides and mentors. And then the third piece for this resiliency and this resilient leadership, I must say, is being open to change and being really accepting of change and being open to growth and desiring of growth and expansion. And so when you orient yourself towards that way of kind of always being in that growth, and I spoke about it before, that receiving posture, then you're really preparing yourself to be able to navigate any storm. You can go through any challenge when you're really malleable in that way. And, I think on Instagram, or just people who are kind of on a spiritual path are very familiar with Bruce Lee. And he's talked about like, be like water. like be like water, go with the flow. And that is such a truth. And that is exactly what this piece means around, being open to change, is being like water. Probably like, Aaron, what the fuck does that mean? Be like water, going with the flow and kind of releasing your expectations around how things can turn out. And I have understand this very well, very deeply, because when I have a goal, like, I go forward and I hold on to it, with all my strength. And and then it leaves little room for magic. It leaves little room for things to get better, because I'm holding on to this, idea of what it should be. When, universe, God's view of what this idea should be is probably so much bigger and so much grander, but there is so much resistance on my end around holding on to what it is. You can even see, like, in that, like, how can I allow the flow if I'm just holding on to things? And this is a trauma response. I have to speak to it exactly for what it is, particularly an inner child trauma response. And this is someone who has a toddler and who also, I am like a big baby, okay? And so I have a toddler, and my toddler is a reflection of me and my big baby. And, for example, if he's watching his iPad and I decide to take his iPad away from him, you can already know what that grip on that iPad's going to be like. It's going to be a fight. It's time to take this away so you can have this beautiful meal. We can go outside and play and meet all of our friends, like, and have something so much greater and so much more beautiful. Yet he's so narrowly focused on this iPad and holding on to what that pleasure sensation is, that he's missing out on something that could be so much more pleasurable, so much more enjoyable, and so much more beneficial for his life. I'm using my toddler as an example, but it's the same for us. If we're holding on to this idea, this project for our business, we've put all of our money, our energy, our time into this project, and it's still not working, we have to kind of let it go, at least energetically, figuratively, metaphorically, and allow for something else to manifest. And I can speak about this too, particularly with social media. And I love to talk about, y'all know I talk about my social media journey and how I was just so like wanting to control everything that went out, and I had to review it, and the words had to be perfect. And this was obviously like a necessary marketing piece for me as a brand. And as I, and I'm speaking to that. This is a really good question. It says, what was the toughest emotional roadblock I've dealt with and how? And I feel like social media to me was a very difficult emotional roadblock. As hard as it is for many of y'all to believe, it was really anxiety inducing for me to be seen on social media, to feel the projections of other people's judgment on me, because I'm such an empath. I think people don't realize how energetically powerful social media is, because we're so connected to so many people at once. So the projection field is right there in front of you. For those of you who are not as familiar with the projection field, we as energetic beings have all of our thoughts and our ideas sitting in our field. That's why when I was speaking about the meditation is really critical to start to harmonize those thoughts, harmonize those energies in our field, harmonize those traumas and those emotions in our field. And essentially every person is walking around with this field. So when you get on Instagram, or when I used to get on Instagram and I used to scroll and I used to see people's pictures or see people's comments, I'm literally feeling their shit, feeling their problems, feeling their challenges. And the energy for me was overwhelming. Especially when came time for myself to post and for myself to be seen. If I didn't get the likes that I thought that I deserved, or the comments, or the shares, y'all, this is ridiculous, but I'm just being honest. It hurt me, like, to the point, like, I'd be crying, like, I'd just be like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting so much energy into this? But I understand that this is a critical part of my business, to be seen. particularly on social media, where so many thought leaders, so many public figures have a wide reach and a wide presence. I wanted that for myself too. Yet I was so, I would say, holding on to this idea of what it should look like, how many people it should be, how frequently people should engage, what they should say to me. And when I didn't get that, it literally pained me. And I can't tell you how many times I had to get off it or take breaks from it or hire other people to do the work because I myself actually couldn't get through with it. And I want to encourage you all because I've talked to so many people, friends, families, colleagues around this social media thing, and it is a real challenge, emotional challenge for people who want to show up for themselves, and it's hard for them to maintain it, to sustain it. And what I've had to do over the years, this has taken years, 4 years I've put into this social media pursuit. Coming up on my birthday next month, I launched November 20th, 2020. Relaunched after being away for years. And it has been a painful pursuit in trying to show up as myself and feel comfortable and feel safe and feel seen and not really care if I have misspellings or mistakes or things happen, because I was striving so much for perfection. And I was striving so much for validation that can never be received externally. That can only come from me. So I had to be able to cultivate that within myself, that love for myself, that intimacy with myself, that validation within, that self-validation, in order to be able to now pop out. I'm posting every day all the time and I'm putting out so much more content, and it's a very different journey for me because I wasn't holding on very fast anymore to this idea of what it should look like. Now it's just going to look like me. And so I feel like, that was such a great question in terms of navigating the toughest emotional roadblock that I've had to do, in my business. And I see in the comments that, there you out there who still feel the same, who are still nervous about getting on social media. And it takes time. That's all I have to say. And it also takes intentional curation on your end. And I was speaking about this. So yes, it takes the inner work, but then it actually takes some outer work in cleaning up your feed and making sure that the people that you're following or the people that you actually see don't give you that anxiety. So if you need to mute posts, mute stories, mute profiles, unfollow, block, you do what you need to do in order to clean up your feed. Because if you're on Instagram 30 minutes to hours a day, like most of us, then this is energy that's coming at you. And you need to be able to control that energy that's coming at you. Clean up your fucking explore page. I have to tell Instagram, don't show me this stuff. I'm not interested. I don't want this. Like, you really have to also start to be proactive about creating the energetic digital environment for you as well, which I don't think that people really think about, is that we're just allowing it to feed us, but I want to be able to make my own food, like at some point, like I want to be able to, my organic, fresh food. So I want to create that organic, fresh environment digitally as well. So, and that's really what I've been working on, is making sure I'm following people who are more aligned with me, making sure I'm engaging more intentionally with their pages, sending them DMs, sending them comments, engaging with people that I actually feel like resonate with me versus old ass friends or childhood friends or people who I don't even know, brands, things like that. Like, you can continue to support with the follow or however that feels for you, but definitely be intentional about cleaning up your social media so that it feels better for you. So then that's a two-way street. So the content that you're receiving gives you some vibes, some good vibes and love. And then also the content that you're giving comes from a place of love and authenticity. And that's at your own pace. So yeah, I really am appreciative to you for asking that question, because that is a word when it comes to that resiliency of leadership and being able to navigate sort of the challenges that come with the digital footprint. And so I'm glad that this resonates with some of you. I see that you're like, that's a gem. Yes, that works. Because we really need to start thinking about all those aspects of our leadership, how we show up digitally, how we show up for ourselves, and how we show up for others. And so it's looking like we're coming, towards the end of the podcast. I really want to start to wrap it up, unless any of you all have more questions. But I want to reiterate the management of emotions and understanding that you are okay where you are with how you feel and whatever's going on in your business, in your life. And be clear to not ignore what you're feeling. Notice it, do your best to name it, and of course, healthy ways of nurturing it. Going outside, going for a walk, taking a bath, going for a run, going to the gym, going to yoga, sitting down and doing absolutely nothing, sipping some tea. Just find ways to not distract yourself. Like I know people will be like, oh, I'll binge watch this or that. Let's find ways to nurture our emotions by actually sitting with them, listening to them, journaling about them, sitting with them. And the number 2 piece is arcing towards that vision and really being able to understand the power of working with someone, a guide, a mentor like me, or an energy person or a spiritual worker. I really am pushing more towards the energy, spiritual aspect of it for folks that are like you at this level, so that you understand that this work is emotional, spiritual work at this level. We didn't gone to all the schools, we didn't learned all the theories, we didn't practice a lot. The muscle that we need to build at this stage is our metaphysical muscle, our emotional muscle. So really working on that piece towards your vision, holding on to that vision without gripping it, bringing us to the third point around being like water, being how Bruce Lee said, going with the flow, keeping ourselves open to change and being okay with that and with that change. And also being intentional about creating the environment for that change, the safe space for it, if you will. So it seems like this resonated with some of you, and I'm so glad that many of you tuned in and left comments and asked questions. And if you are interested in working with me more deeply, I highly encourage you to go to my website, erinpatton.com. Check out my offerings. I have my keynote speaking, which I coin as my MetaBusiness VIP day, where I can come in and speak to your organization anywhere from 3 hours. So we can do, days-long retreats. I also do meta strategy work, which requires a deeper dive into how your organization is actually approaching its challenges and its problems. And so the meta strategy work looks like frameworks. It looks like, lots of engagement workshops, really looking at the vision, the values of your organization more specifically, and aligning yourself towards that goals. And then last but not least is my one-on-one meta coaching. And I'd love to talk with you about that if that interests you. And in the meantime, leave me comments, share this video, follow me across social media. I love you all so much. Peace. Did you really love this episode of the MetaBusiness Millennial podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatton.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.